Hello, this is Mel from Digital Reach, and I'm once again with Mandy to talk about how nonprofits can use HubSpot to do things better and to do more good. Hi, Mandy. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Very excited to talk about revenue reporting and forecasting with you because I know that you listed this as one of your top three most critical things for nonprofits to have set up effectively.
Yes. Yes, yes.
So let's dive right into it and talk about which hubs and package levels
Okay.
nonprofits might need to make this feature work best for them.
Yes, absolutely. So to report in HubSpot and to be able to create custom reports, you can do that on free, you can do that on starter. So you get great reporting no matter what. Now, when we start to get into tools like the forecasting tool, you need Sales Hub Professional or higher to do forecasting. And then we get revenue attribution in Marketing Hub, I believe Professional. It might even be Starter. You'll have to double check me on that. But if you want to get multi-touch revenue attribution, then you need Marketing Hub Enterprise. So if you don't have Enterprise, you can choose last touch or first touch, but you cannot do like W shape, U shape, all of these other attribution patterns or models that are used. Linear, time decay, those are all only for enterprise. Now, it is really nice to have multi-touch revenue attribution if you have big ad spend and you're really wanting to understand how everything is being influenced and it makes sense. Something that happens too is it depends on how big your database is. So the way that HubSpot's pricing works around marketing is that you have your core price for the hub and for all the tools, and then the number of contacts you're marketing to. So not everyone in your CRM. You could have 1 million contacts in your CRM and I'm only marketing to 100,000. Those are the ones you have to pay for the marketing hub. Okay. So basically when you get to about 30 to 40,000 contacts, it starts to make more sense to have the enterprise hub. Because what HubSpot does is when you get the marketing hub, you get 2,000 contacts and then you pay for them in blocks of 5 or 10,000 contacts at a time, depending on if you're pro or enterprise. The cost per contact is actually more expensive on pro than it is on enterprise. So there reaches a point where you start to level out and it actually gets cheaper to have enterprise because even though the base cost is higher, the cost per 5 or 10,000 contacts is lower. So that's kind of how the pricing works around around the marketing hub and marketing contacts and the different attribution features. So again, forecasting, you're going to need Sales Hub Pro or higher. Multi-touch revenue attribution, you're going to need Enterprise Marketing Hub. But, if you're okay with single touch, last touch, first touch, then you can go ahead and do that with the Marketing Hub Pro.
Right. So, I mean, you mentioned a lot of different features of reporting and attribution. Why are those important? What problems do those solve for nonprofits?
Yep, great point. I mean, tons of problems. So having dashboards. So number one, just simple like understanding how your donations are going. If you want to break down, are more people donating from mobile or from desktop, right? So we can report on those types of things that can help us make decisions on our campaigns. We can look into the demographics of who is donating so that we know who to focus on based on who's most likely to donate to us. And then we can also compare, right? Like how did we do first quarter of 2022 compared to first quarter of 2021? We can set goals in our report. So how close are we to reaching this particular goal that we have, right? If we're talking about, the attribution aspect of it, is social media driving us donations? Is email driving us donations? Are ads driving us donations? If we have multi-touch revenue attribution, as anybody who works at a nonprofit knows, the donor journey is long. Barely anybody is going to learn about your nonprofit and then that day donate money to you. You've got to take them through, and this is the same for all things. This isn't just donations, but you've got to take them on that journey, right? So you might drive them to your website through an ad or through a social media post, and then you get their email address, and then you nurture them with emails, and then maybe it's some appeal that you have that came through via text message that they actually donated from. So when we do multi-touch revenue attribution, if we were doing a single point, let's say it was last touch, you'd be like, oh, the text messages are really getting us a lot of donations, right? But like, there's a bigger story than that happening. There's that playing out. Like, that is when they actually donated. But if you had just texted them out of nowhere, without doing all of that nurturing, would they have donated? So when we have multi-touch, we're able to get attribution spread out. The other thing we're able to do, even if you don't have multi-touch revenue attribution, is to be able to segment and filter your reports, because HubSpot's really easy. You can make cross-object reports. It will suggest to you based on the data you want to look at what report to look, what type of visualization to use. So if you're like me and you're like, I have no idea if this should be a pie chart or a graph or a bar report, like I don't know what to use, HubSpot will actually tell you which one is best to use for whatever data you're trying to look at. But let's say we want to take like all of our donations that have come in and like, how many of these people are regularly opening our emails? We can do that filter. How many people in this list of donors regularly reads our emails? Well, if we see it's 90% of them, we could guess that email is probably doing a really good job, even if it's not getting the attribution, right? So it allows us to understand. And then on the marketing side, it allows us to understand overall how that's performing. Because if you're running your ads and social and everything through HubSpot, you get to, rather than hopping around and context switching and let me go into Facebook to see how they're looking at my posts and let me go into Google to see how the ads are doing and let me go into Search Console to see how my SEO is doing. You can actually look at all of that in one place. So it just saves time, even from that perspective of like, how much engagement is this social post getting, down to, is this social post having an impact on the donations I'm receiving? So we can look at it from that platform only perspective of how did it perform in like the general terms of performance metrics, following it all the way to how much did it impact money that actually came in the door. And the fact that we can report across all of that in a single dashboard if we want to, or we can do it in multiple dashboards, allows us to really know how are our actions working individually leading up to the donations. And then when money is coming in the door, when revenue is coming in the door, let's look back at what's leading to that revenue, or with the forecasting reports, right? Based on our trends, how likely are we to continue to have more donations coming in based on those trends that have happened?
Yeah, and let's talk about the how, because you're mentioning information that's coming from social media, from emails. For nonprofits who aren't completely immersing themselves in HubSpot and are using other tools, how does HubSpot have that information? How can HubSpot help us with the tools that are outside of the platform itself?
Absolutely. So if we want HubSpot to help us, we have to at least connect them, right? So like you can run your social posts through the platforms, but you need to connect them with HubSpot, because then HubSpot will actually take all of that information in, right? So we need to connect it so we get the data in there to be able to analyze that data. So even if we're not using HubSpot for everything, like MailChimp, let's say you get, you only want to use the donor management and you're still going to run emails out of MailChimp. Well, we can connect MailChimp and find out about those email opens and clicks so that we can still look at that information as it relates to our donation. So even if you're not going to use the tools inside of HubSpot, you want to make sure you connect everything. Like when you're building an ad campaign, don't build it in HubSpot. Don't build your Facebook campaigns in HubSpot. That's way harder. Facebook has invested a lot into making that tool easy to use for the building. Build there, but then analyze and optimize and roll all your data up inside of the HubSpot platform so that you don't have to do that context switching. And then the only time you might analyze outside of HubSpot is if you're a really big nonprofit that's got data coming from a lot of places. You might actually push the data from HubSpot into a tool like Snowflake, which does have an integration with HubSpot at the enterprise level. And then you might push all of your data from, other tools. Maybe you have a tool like where people are actually, like we have a client who they're actually wanting to track engagement in their program. Like, how are people going online and using their modules? Now, using HubSpot's API, we could actually pull that information into HubSpot as well and analyze it there. But sometimes for different reasons, someone wants to use a data warehouse. So HubSpot can also push its data out to a Tableau, to a Snowflake, or wherever, Power BI, if you want to analyze that data outside.
So overwhelming, right? Because that's a lot of data. That's a lot of different data streams. It's coming from a lot of different places. What would you say to a nonprofit that has a small team and limited resources that might have some hesitation around even diving into all of that data, even having all of that information available to them?
Yeah, great question. And that is hard. I mean, that's one of the things when HubSpot rolled out the Operations Hub, one of the things that they have is data sets. Because when you're going to build a report in HubSpot, you're like, oh man, I have like 1,000 data points to choose from. What do I even start with? So the answer to this is, number one, you're going to love, if you're a nonprofit who's worked in a tool like Blackbaud or Salsa, report building is so easy and straightforward. So you're going to, it's going to be very simple for you to be able to build your reports. But if you're not sure how to do it, do that in your onboarding. Have your partners, whoever is onboarding you, this is what we do. What do you want the data to tell you? What questions do you ask the data? because then we can make a dashboard for you that answers those questions for you. Okay. But then if you're not used to it, I mean, most people are going to be looking at their social media and all of those other metrics. So again, what's really nice in HubSpot is that you can actually look at everything in one place. You can build a campaign that actually pulls in social media posts, ads, emails, landing pages, CTAs, forms, all of that. And it will roll up report how all of those assets did together towards whatever, donation goal or whatever it was that you had as your objective for that campaign. So that makes it easy to analyze. But then when if you are going to build reports by yourself, the report builder is really user-friendly and easy to use. So what I recommend doing is what question do I want to answer, and what data points support that answer, so you can start with a small subset, and then you can go in and start building a report. And then, of course, HubSpot has 24/7 support. Whatever agency you work with to build things out has support, and their forum, HubSpot's forum, is amazing. So people come in, they answer questions regularly. So if all else fails and you're not sure how to build your report, if you ask someone in the forum, HubSpot has community managers that are on that all the time, making sure. I get tagged all the time to answer people's questions when, the forum manager knows the type of question I normally answer and thinks that it would be in my wheelhouse. So everyone is there to help. The resources are plentiful. And I feel like anybody coming from any other nonprofit tool, the reporting in HubSpot will only delight them, if not overwhelm them, that they can actually get the data they want for once. But I think that it is a positive experience.
Yeah, positive for sure. I mean, between the user-friendly nature of the platform, the support that's available, all the different integrations, I think we've really covered what sets HubSpot's reporting and forecasting apart from other options. But we'd have to talk about blind spots. Are there any that exist in the existing HubSpot tools for reporting and forecasting? And how can we work around those things?
Yeah, great question. I think the only gap that would possibly be there for people would really just be if you have data that's not coming into HubSpot, right? Making sure. And so where you're going to have the biggest hurdles to get over, and we can get over these hurdles. We have done this numerous times. Nonprofits present some of the hardest problems to solve because their software is usually not as open and connected as we see on the for-profit side of things. And so we can almost always find a solution. Sometimes we have to get really creative with it. So that would be my only thing is if you have program management, some sort of legacy tool that doesn't have an open API, that will not connect with anything, doesn't have webhooks, we can't get to that data, then we might have to come up with some other solution for that that will require some manual tasks. But usually we've automated so many things that if it's okay, well, we have this 3-step manual process that you have to actually export this stuff into a spreadsheet, and we've created a template already for how that will need to be to pull that into HubSpot. So save that. I really think that, I don't really think there are any reporting or attribution gaps.
Well, that's great news, given all the benefits. No gaps. That's wonderful. I mean, it seems like a great solution to turn to. And I know that a number of our clients in the nonprofit side have come to us to kind of figure out their reporting and forecasting. Can you tell me about some particular wins that we've seen in this area?
Yeah, absolutely. So especially in what you just said, the donation forecasting and just being able to understand donor patterns, when you can really report and even know that this one's going to sound very basic, but just the impact that your email marketing has on donations. I think that when we zoom in on a single email, this email only generated this, right? But when we look at the series of emails and what email marketing and our automated nurtures and all of these things did over time, we can actually see that it produced a lot, right? So I think the biggest win we've seen is being able to help our nonprofits identify patterns and to allow them to experiment and report back on that as well, right? So if we, with Save the Chimps, we got into more segmented, personalized marketing, and then you can look back and compare, end of year appeal last year in 2021 to 2020, and it was way better and it was way personalized. And then way more personalized. And then we know that personalization, if that's the only thing we changed, then personalization really had a lift on donations. So moving into the next year, how can we personalize more, right? Where can we be even better there so that we can increase that even further. So I think it can help you know what to focus on, understand at a high level what is and isn't working, and then drill down. And then of course it can also help to show, like we've helped nonprofits prove that no, advertising and retargeting is having a really big impact. It's keeping, because it's moving, like being able to show that we're accelerating the time it takes from first contact to donation by being able to increase the contacts through advertising and getting impressions that someone otherwise would not have got of your nonprofit, that's actually helping too, so that you can continue to invest in that particular thing, right? Because otherwise we're depending on, okay, when they get the organic social or when the SEO works. But, we'll look at the example we had given before about Save the Chimps. Like how many times are people Googling that, right? So and then are they opening your emails? But if we can get that little cute, chimp miss video in their Facebook feed, like we know we're going to get an impactful impression, and that's going to accelerate the time to donation. But again, we have to be able to show that. And so that reporting is really powerful too, as attribution has shifted and we have less of that at like view through attribution windows are pretty much gone. Click through attribution windows are shorter. People are way more savvy and are clearing their cookies anyways. And so we're getting less of that attribution. So if we can show, again, those trends that like, we started doing these ads and the trend, the average donation, the average amount donated went up. The frequency of donating went up. The time from gaining a new contact to donating shortened. So then we can help make better decisions about how to invest in other development efforts.
Totally. And I think you said something that was really important about, one, being able to see what works and identify those victories, but also to experiment and to find new ways to win. And reporting and forecasting allow you to at least start with something. That data visibility really gives you a leg to stand on instead of just taking guesses.
Yep, absolutely. Exactly. And you can make decisions on what you're going to do based on really being able to see those results and understanding, and to see things you wouldn't have expected if you took everything into their little silos. When you bring all of that data together across all of your activities related to development, you have a much better understanding of those trends, which, while we could all attribute everything, I think it gave us a false sense of control. I think it actually just made us focus only on what we could track. And we lost track of like benchmarking and trends and getting that bigger picture and zooming out. And so I think HubSpot's really great for that. You can see a trend, you can zoom in on what that was, and then come back out and kind of look at the bigger picture again. And with the experiments, you can run these A/B tests and you can run them on CTAs, you can run them on landing pages, you have all of these different places, your emails, your ads. So we can run these experiments and again, see all of that data in one place. And it really does, for development, for nonprofits, it makes so much sense.
Well, thank you again, Mandy, for walking us through how valuable HubSpot's reporting and forecasting tools can be for nonprofits. I'm definitely looking forward to talking to you about how we can use all of that data to nurture donors in the future. We have a lot more to discuss about HubSpot for nonprofits. So thank you again for talking to me about this particular topic.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.